You were talking a second ago about shouting and aggression. It made me, as you're saying it, I was thinking, there is a stereotype that a man is aggressive and he shouts and all those things. There's a bit of a stereotype there. What I was actually thinking is, it's never been so unclear what a man is than in 2024, in the context of how a man's meant to show up. Are they meant to be masculine or feminine or somewhere in between or whatever? And for many men, you are a man's man. When we think of Navy SEALs, we go, men. Do you know what I mean? So I was wondering, because it's never been as clear, I think, what a man should be. When you're raising a kid, that's a man, or when you're being a man yourself, what do you think a man should be? And I want to give a bit more context here. There's a lot of men struggling right now. There's a lot of men, if I talk about it a lot, that if you look at the stats around suicidality in the UK, the thing that's most likely to kill someone between the age of 18 and 40 is themselves, for a man. So men are clearly struggling in some capacity with purpose or meaning or something. So I almost feel like, a lot of these sort of toxic influences of what a man should be have now emerged to offer answers. But I doubt those toxic influences. And I say there's got to be another role model, another sort of blueprint for what it is to show up as a man.
Well, I was going to give you I guess it would have been a real cheap answer of, I think it's Marcus Aurelius, is stop discussing what it is to be a man and be one. I was going to walk out of here with that one. I'd be like, pretty good question avoidance there. But there's some merit to that, right? And I was almost thinking, do we really not know? Do we really not know what it is to be a good man? And I would go so far as to say to be a good human being, right? Because when a few years ago there was these discussions going around about toxic masculinity, right? And you take these traditional masculine traits and people were saying this is toxic masculinity and they're bad. And I wrote a couple articles about it. If you take any trait of a human being and you take it to an extreme, masculine or feminine or otherwise, you take it to an extreme, it's going to be a problem. It doesn't matter what it is. So if you take even a really positive trait like generosity, if you're a super generous person, that's wonderful. Is it possible to be too generous? Well, yes, it is. Now you're getting taken advantage of, and now you end up in an abusive relationship. There's all kinds of problems that can happen. So when we talk about masculine traits and what's a man, well, what are some of the traditional masculine traits? To be competitive. Now, is it bad to be hyper competitive where you screw people over and you hurt your health because you want to win in this particular category? Is that bad? Yes, it is. Does that mean we have people that are not competitive at all and they don't care if they win or lose? No, that's not good either. So that's one trait. What's another good aggression? Aggression is a masculine trait. Is it good if I'm walking into a restaurant pushing the hostess out of my way? Of course, that's terrible. It's terrible. Is it good if you and I are working together and I say, hey, shut up and do what I said? Is that good? No, it's not good. So can you take aggression too far? Yes, you absolutely can. Can you get to a point where you're not even asserting yourself at all and you're getting, yes, you can. Is that good? No, that's not good either. So there's a bunch of traits that we could run through that are considered traditional masculine traits. And if you take any of those traits and you take them to an extreme, they're going to be bad. Stoicism, right? Being stoic, being unemotional. Is it good to have no emotions whatsoever? No, that's called a sociopath, right? Is that good? No. Is it good, like I was talking about earlier, to let your emotions run your life and make your decisions based on your emotions? No, that's not good either. What do we want to be as a human, as a man? I want to be balanced. Want to be balanced. You don't want to be extreme in any direction. Even when you ask me oh, Jocko, what are you undisciplined on? I told you chocolate chip cookies. I could have also said, yeah, sometimes I like to eat mint chocolate chip milkshakes. Sometimes I get lazy to work out. I'm like, you know what? I freaking warmed up and this sucks and I'm leaving. Sometimes I was gonna write something and now I didn't write anything. I'm supposed to write 1,000 words today. I didn't write any. And guess what? I didn't write any tomorrow. And so I'm a slacker. So if I was so disciplined that, my wife was like, hey, I'd like to go out for dinner. I was like, no, I still got to write my 1,000 words. Is that good? No, it's not good. So any characteristic, if we take it to extreme, it's going to be a problem. And so we, as people, should be balanced. And I think what we need to be attuned to is it's much easier to be extreme. It's much easier to be extreme. It's much easier to say, oh, no emotions, cool, and turn them off. That's easier than, or total emotion mayhem, that's easier. It's harder to find balance. It's harder to find balance in business. It's harder to find balance in life. It's hard to find balance. And what we have to do is we have to be attuned to the feedback that we're getting. We have to be attuned to the feedback that we're getting. So if we're talking to our wife and she says, you're not going to be home for dinner again tonight for the 9th night in a row that you're going to stay late at work. Okay, you need to be paying attention enough to say, oh yeah, guess what? I'm a little too focused on work right now. And then the other end of that spectrum is my boss says, hey, Jocko, wait, you're leaving early again? Well, it's wrestling season. My daughter's got a wrestling match, so I'm going to leave. Okay, I need to be attuned enough to say, yeah, if I focus 100% on my job, I'm going to lose my family. If I focus 100% on my family, I'm going to lose my job. We as humans are supposed to be balanced. And by the way, there's going to be some things that we don't control. Somebody asked me the other day, what did I learn about myself from the highs and lows of my life? The highest point of my life and the lowest point of my life, what did I learn about myself? And I said, I learned that I don't let the highs and the lows affect me too much. Because we're going to have wins, we're going to have losses. We're going to have successes, we're going to have failures. We're going to have good nights, we're going to have bad nights. We're going to have good relationships, we're going to have bad relationships. We're going to have good ideas and bad ideas. We're going to make money, we're going to lose money. All these things are going to happen. And if you oscillate emotionally up and down drastically, it's going to be problematic. So finding a good, stable, centered way to be and look at the world and take everything that you see with a little bit of a grain of salt and don't get swayed too drastically in one direction or the other, you're going to be okay. And if I was to try and sum up some of this idea about being a man or being a good human, it's like those books. I wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. That, number one, take responsibility for what you're doing. Take ownership of your world. Take ownership of your life. There's number one. Number two, the second book, Dichotomy of Leadership. Be balanced. Be balanced. Don't be extreme. Extreme. Look, do you have to sometimes get out there in the fringes a little bit? Occasionally. You probably had some business situations where you're like, all right, I got to let go half of my staff right now. That's an extreme move, but that's how we're going to start. Do you have to do that sometimes? Yes, you do. But don't let that be where you live. Live in the center. Live in a stable area. And then finally, discipline equals freedom.